Alrighty, let's have a quick run through of the pairs that you guys voted today, starting with GJ. Now, GJ, I am going to tell you right now, I have a love-hate relationship with this pair because if you get it right and it goes in the direction that you analyze, it can run 60 to 100 pips just like that. But if you get it wrong, GJ is a pair that really tests your patience and your discipline towards your trading plan. Okay, I always call it's like the gold of the currency pairs. Okay, so that's GJ for you. But now we have our sell zone and our buy zone, same thing. Okay, but what we have to do is be patient for the price to come into our zones and not chase the market. So what are we going to do? We're going to wait for the price to test our zones, whether it comes into our sell zone or our buy zone. We are going to wait. Once it reaches our zone, we are going to see if there are any setups present, right? If there are, then we can catch a sell from the sell key level and a buy from the buy key level. And to lower that risk even more, you can wait for H4 to close within the zone to give you, confirmation that there are still sellers present that are trying to keep the price below the limit over here. Okay, because if it doesn't, sometimes you can see that the price just shoots up and it does a little like this where it closes above the zone. Okay, there are multiple times where it happens like that just because you are not patient enough to wait for the setup to form. Okay, so wait for the setups to form first. Don't just press. You can if you want to, if you don't have time. But if you do and you want to become an independent trader, wait for the setups to form in these key levels before pressing anything. Okay? If H4 decides to break above our sell or below our buy zone, then there's a chance for it to go even higher or drop down even lower. Okay, so in those cases, you will look for the next zones or wait for the price to retrace back into the key level for the opposite setups. Now, what are the setups that you're going to monitor in M15, by the way? M5 or M15, but always start with M15 first, okay? The setups that you are going to monitor are engulfing meets engulfing fail meets engulfing, or even ABC. Okay, what Mr. Cloud likes to call it. So wait for those to form either in M15 or M5. Better yet, if you have both, you have double confirmation from 2 time frames. You have a higher chance at winning that trade. Okay, but nothing is 100%, so keep that in mind. Although it might form those setups, there are some times where the market goes against that. But as long as you follow the plan, you follow the strategy, in the long term, you will always win. Okay, so EG is the next pair. We have our sell zone up here, which is an engulfing sell that was respected multiple times, where we have this engulfing sell and another engulfing sell. Then we have our buy zone, which is an engulfing sell that failed. Price has yet to come in, close with the end, create any engulfings in this zone, so we are using it as our buy, as it is the closest one to our current price. Okay, that has significance. Now the current price is here. What can EG do? Now EG is a very heavy pair, meaning it can be quite slow, but it moves very steadily. Okay, it moves very steadily. As you can see, if it goes on a buy like this after breaking this engulfing sell, there's a potential for it to go higher, right? So after breaking, price came back, tapped the key level, and this is what I mean by it goes in a very steady mode. Steady. If it fails to break, drops. Still steady. Okay? Very, very steady. If you get it right, usually EG, I like to hold on to the next one because it's heavy, meaning there's strength to it and there's security to it. Okay, so I do really like this pair, although it's a bit slow, but EG is a very safe pair to trade. Okay, so now if the price comes into our buy zone and respects it, then potentially we can look for buys. But if it breaks down below, there's a potential for it to go even lower. Okay, vice versa, same thing. If it comes into our sell, make sure it create sell setups if it's in a sell zone before you enter, okay? Because if it does that, then we can look for sells. But if it breaks on H4, if H4 decides to break our zone, then there's a potential to go even higher, right? SLs, okay, if you are not someone who likes to cut losses, or you do not know where to exit or even stop manually closing the trades from losses, then I suggest as soon as you enter, set SL and TPs, okay? Especially if you do not have time to monitor. 40 pips is a good amount of range, not too tight, not too loose, but if you can refine it down and if you have time to monitor on the charts, you can get it even lower, sometimes 20, sometimes 30, depending on the currencies and depending on the setups, right? But for newbies and beginners, 40 pips is a good enough SL. Okay, so calculate your risk to that if you're going to use the 40 pips. Okay, this just helps manage your losses. Otherwise, you would float, and majority of the times you end up losing more than what you expected. So it kind of plays with your emotions, okay? Last but not least, EU, a very, very slow and safe pair to trade. This is probably the best pair for beginners. I always suggest EU to try it out, although it's slow, but you have time. Okay, as beginners, you need time to map, you need time to understand the market, you need time to see the setup forming in front of your eyes, and EU can give you that, okay, because it's quite slow. Now we have our sell zone, starting with this engulfing buy that failed, price came in, created the first engulfing sell, then we have our second engulfing sell. So the sellers have locked the price over here, creating the A, B, C, okay? And our buy zone is an engulfing sell that failed, price came in, created the first engulfing buy, and now this is trying, as you can see, it took one H4 from this price level to drop down into a key level, but the buyers were able to stop. So we know that the buyers are quite strong, able to stop this movement, and now it's just trying to push back up. Okay, so for EU, what are we going to do? We are going to wait. We are not going to be trading in between, nope, right? Because it's risky. It can be a sell or a buy. You have no idea how it's going to move. So better risk your money at some place like this, where it's a proper zone. We have data to back it up that the price comes into play within these areas. So again, with that being said, we're going to wait for the price to come in to our zones, see if it creates any setups, and if it still respects our zones, then we can look for the buys and sells in our key levels. But if H4, if it doesn't, right, when the price comes in and it's just going through the key level, not really respecting or creating any setups, then that kind of gives you a clue. Either it needs more time to create a setup, or there's a potential for it to push the price that it is reflected on the H4 to break our zones. Okay, so sometimes you can see that it just goes through the key level like this, and on H4 you will see it reflected as a candle that closes above or below the zones. Okay, so something to be mindful of, and something that you can see happen in front of your eyes, especially if you're trying to study the market. If H4 decides to do that and close above our sell and below our buy, then there's a potential, for it to go even higher or lower respectively. Okay, now let's talk about TPs. TP is something that can be subjective or objective, depending on you. If you have a daily target profit that you've already set, in parentheses, realistically, okay? We are talking about realistically. Don't say that, oh, I have $50, I want to make 200 in a day. No. Be realistic, and you will have less stress, you will have less anxiety, and you will be able to stay in the market for much, much longer. Okay, so set a realistic goal. Once you have that, break it down into pips. How many pips do you want to hold for that you are capable of holding? So either it goes 10, 20, 30. If you're comfortable with that, stick with that. Or if you are someone who likes to trade with market structure, you can TPS previous high or previous low. Or if you are like me, I like to TP at the next key level. Okay, but I like to monitor as the chart goes. All right, so that's it for the 3 pairs. Please be patient and please be smart about where you spend your money and how much you spend it. Okay? I will get to your messages and I will talk to you soon. Bye.